I wanted to turn to another article that you'd written recently on the new surveillance gadgets that have been developed by our government that people aren't aware of.
Right, the Stingray technology. Well, I mean, Stingrays have been around since the 1990s, and basically, you know, when cell phones started to emerge, and then it became clear that that was going to be a very serious, you know, technology that was widely used, the FBI and other domestic law enforcement agencies started to become concerned about how they would be able to monitor, you know, people's communications. And in the beginning, it was fairly easy for them to do this because they were using radio waves. And in fact, there was a famous case in which a retired couple in Florida that were sort of amateur radio operators were able to pick up phone calls of then House Speaker Newt Gingrich. And that's really how this kind of came to light in the U.S. Congress, that you know, there was a vulnerability in cell phones. But for the FBI and other agencies, the vulnerability was a good thing. I mean, now we're looking at this whole issue about the iPhone and unlocking it in San Bernardino. I mean, that's just the very current modern iteration of the challenges that U.S. law enforcement was facing with trying to access these communications. And so what was created for a military purpose, and this often is what happens, this is what we see with the militarization of law enforcement in the U.S., the surveillance platforms that were created by and for the NSA, the CIA, other intelligence agencies, the U.S. military, to target the communications of terrorists or adversaries or, you know, drug syndicates, smugglers, and others, started to become a common part of police in this country, both on a local and state level, and also the FBI on a federal level, for using these devices to target people in routine criminal investigations. And, you know, Stingray is sort of like, you know, Kleenex. Kleenex is actually a brand. You know, it's like a facial tissue is the actual thing. Stingray has now just become a term that is used to describe any of these devices that can essentially break down the security of mobile devices and access data. And, you know, the ACLU has filed many lawsuits and FOIA requests around the country. And, I mean, the number of agencies in the U.S. that are using these kinds of devices is extraordinary. I mean, there's almost no major law enforcement entity in the U.S. that isn't using some form of a Stingray. I mean, it's a very invasive technology that is not very discerning. Meaning you can get the quote unquote bad guys' communications, but you're going to get a whole lot of other people's data as well, and that's the civil liberties argument with this. But there is a race between you know, users of this of cell phones and computer technologies and law enforcement and intelligence agencies to try to break down that privacy. And in some ways, you know, the battle that's happening between the White House and the FBI and Apple is a little bit of theater of the absurd. You know, and when you talk to people that are really seriously in the business of monitoring the communications of, you know, terror cells and others, the NSA is way ahead of everyone in this. And the idea that Apple somehow is you know, providing terrorists with something that they can't crack into is just false. You know, and the backdoor thing, you know, serious people that work in hacking on behalf of the U.S. government, they laugh at the idea that a backdoor would solve their problems. They can hack people's phones. They can hack through the encryption of many of these platforms. So in a lot of ways, they're using terrorism as a way to try to ensure that when necessary, they can immediately access data on anyone's device in this country or around the world.
We're going to break.